Imagine someone walks up to you and offers to sell you the Eiffel Tower, the actual Eiffel Tower. You would laugh, right? You would think it is the most ridiculous scam in the world. But in 1925, a man pulled off exactly this con. Not once, but twice. And the victims never even went to the police. This is the story of Victor Lustig, a man so dangerously charming, so brilliantly deceptive, that the United States Secret Service once called him the smoothest con man that ever lived. His life reads like a Hollywood thriller, except every single bit of it actually happened. But to understand how someone could sell a national monument, we first need to look at the Eiffel Tower itself, because in the 1920s, the tower was not the beloved symbol it is today. It was actually controversial. Many Parisians considered it an ugly iron eyesore ruining the city's skyline. When Gustave Eiffel built the tower for the 1889 World's Fair, it was meant to be temporary. It was supposed to stand for just 20 years and then be dismantled. By the 1920s, the structure was aging, maintenance costs were skyrocketing, and newspapers openly debated whether Paris should just tear it down. Now, this is where Victor Lustig enters the picture. Born in 1,890 inches, what is now the Czech Republic, Lustig was not some street-level hustler. He was educated, spoke 5 languages fluently, and dressed like a European aristocrat. He understood one thing deeply. People's greed is their greatest weakness. Lustig had already spent years running scams across Atlantic Ocean luxury liners, tricking wealthy passengers with fake investment schemes and a device he called the money box, a machine he claimed could duplicate banknotes. But his most audacious idea was still ahead of him. In the spring of 1925, Lustig was sitting in a Paris cafe reading a newspaper article about the Eiffel Tower's rising maintenance costs. The article casually mentioned that the government was struggling to fund the tower's upkeep. And just like that, a light bulb went off in his head. He thought, what if the government had secretly decided to sell the tower for scrap metal? After all, it weighed over 7,000 tons of iron. That is roughly the weight of 1,400 elephants. The scrap value alone would be enormous. What if he pretended to be the official handling the sale? Now, you might be thinking, how is this even remotely possible? How could anyone believe a random man was authorized to sell a national landmark? Well, this is where Lustig's genius for manipulation truly shines. He had fake government stationery printed, complete with official-looking letterheads and seals. He then identified 6 prominent scrap metal dealers in Paris. These were wealthy, ambitious businessmen who were always looking for the next big deal, the perfect targets. Lustig sent each of them a confidential letter on the forged stationery, inviting them to a secret meeting at the prestigious Hôtel de Crillon. The letter explained that the French government had decided to sell the Eiffel Tower for demolition, but wanted to keep the decision out of the press to avoid public backlash. Think about this from the dealer's perspective. The letter looked authentic. The meeting was at one of the most expensive hotels in Paris. And the story made sense because newspapers had genuinely been discussing the tower's uncertain future. Every detail checked out perfectly. At the meeting, Lustig played his role flawlessly. He introduced himself as the Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs. He spoke with authority, dropped bureaucratic jargon, and even acted slightly bored, as if selling a 7,000-ton iron structure was just another Tuesday for him. But wait, there is a catch. Lustig was not just looking for any buyer. He was looking for the most insecure one. During the meeting, he carefully studied each dealer's personality, searching for someone eager to prove himself, someone desperate enough to act fast and ask fewer questions. That man was André Poisson. Poisson was a relatively new dealer in the Paris business world. He felt like an outsider. He saw this deal as his golden ticket to join the city's elite circle of industrialists. Lustig could smell that desperation from a mile away. To make things even more convincing, Lustig did something incredibly clever. He privately confided to Poisson that his government salary was quite low and hinted that a personal consideration would help speed things along. In other words, he asked for a bribe. This was a masterstroke of psychology. By asking for a bribe, Lustig actually made himself appear more legitimate. Poisson thought, of course a corrupt government official would want a little extra money on the side. That is just how things work. The bribe removed his last shred of doubt. Poisson handed over a massive sum of money for the Eiffel Tower, plus the bribe on top. The exact amount has been debated by historians, but estimates suggest it was equivalent to roughly $70,000 in 1925, which in today's money would be over $1 million. And then Lustig simply vanished. He took the cash, boarded a train to Vienna, and checked into a luxury hotel. He spent the next few weeks anxiously scanning French newspapers every single morning, waiting for headlines about the scam. But here is the most unbelievable part. Nothing happened. Poisson was so embarrassed about being duped that he never reported it to the police. Think about that for a second. The victim's shame was so powerful that it became Lustig's greatest protection. The crime essentially erased itself. Now, most criminals would count their blessings and move on. But Victor Lustig was not most criminals. When he realized that nobody was looking for him, he thought, why not do it again? So, roughly 1 month later, he returned to Paris and ran the exact same scheme. He printed new stationery, identified a new batch of scrap dealers, and booked another fancy hotel. The entire playbook was identical. This time, however, luck was not entirely on his side. The second victim became suspicious and contacted the police before handing over the money. But even then, Lustig managed to escape before authorities could close in. He fled France entirely and headed to the United States, where an even bigger chapter of his criminal career was about to begin. The Eiffel Tower con was just the opening act. In America, Lustig continued running elaborate scams. He even conned the infamous gangster Al Capone out of $5,000 using nothing but a clever story and psychological manipulation. When you can successfully scam one of the most dangerous criminals in history, you are operating on a different level. To understand how Lustig kept getting away with everything, you have to appreciate his personal rulebook. He once wrote a set of principles for successful conning, and the core idea was simple. Never act like you want something. Make the other person feel like they are the one benefiting. His downfall, interestingly, did not come from the Eiffel Tower con or any of his grand schemes. It came from counterfeiting. In the 1930s, Lustig began producing fake dollar bills that were so high quality that the Secret Service launched a nationwide manhunt to find him. He was finally arrested in 1935 after his own girlfriend, angry about his affairs with other women, tipped off the authorities. It is almost poetic that the man who manipulated everyone around him was ultimately betrayed by the one manipulation he could not control: love. Lustig was sentenced to 20 years in the infamous Alcatraz prison, the same fortress that held Al Capone. He died there in 1947 from complications of pneumonia. On his death certificate, under the field for occupation, the authorities wrote a single word: salesman. His story raises an uncomfortable question about human nature. Lustig never used violence, never used threats, and never used weapons. His only tools were confidence, storytelling, and an understanding of human greed. And with just those tools, he sold the most famous landmark in the world. So the next time someone offers you a deal that sounds too good to be true, remember André Poisson. Remember the man who genuinely believed he was buying the Eiffel Tower. Because the most dangerous lie is not the one that sounds unbelievable. It is the one that sounds exactly like what you want to hear.